Now, I don't think I'd be wrong or indeed unfair to say that we've been a little bit disappointed and more than a little underwhelmed when it comes to the Ford Motor Company's offering in the electric car market. The Explorer, it's a perfectly fine car, but that's its problem. It's just fine. It's a fairly average product that's in a marketplace where you need to be better than average if you're going to stand out and make an impact. And then there's the Capri. Now, I don't have a problem with Ford calling the car a Capri. What I have a problem with is what they say that it is, because Ford say that it's an SUV with the soul of a sports car. What I call it is an overpriced piece of faceless mediocrity. But in fairness to Ford, perhaps we have forgotten, in fact, maybe in some respects, Ford themselves have forgotten that they actually make a very good all-electric, medium-sized electric SUV. So perhaps it's down to this one to uphold Ford's heritage when it comes to performance and motorsport legacy. Because this one carries the Mustang badge. It's the Mustang Mach-E. And there's now a new derivative of it that possibly does all of those things, but maybe not in the way that you might have expected. Because it's this shrinking violet, the new Mustang Mach-E Rally. Welcome to this week's road test review. Welcome to the Mustang Mach-E Rally. And as always, welcome to AutoEV. Now, before we get started on this week's road test review of the new Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally, it is of course the time where I would just ask a small favour of you. Yes, I know it's boring, but I do need to ask, could you just make sure you're subscribed to the AutoEV channel for me if you're not already, please? Then when you've done that, make sure you press the little bell button down below, because that's the way you'll be notified when the next video is uploaded and it's gone live. Once you've watched the review, if you enjoy it, and I hope you do, give it a thumbs up for me, and don't forget, leave us your thoughts, I'm sure you will, down in the comment section down below. Let me know what you think about the cars that we feature on the channel, such as the Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally, and of course on the AutoEV channel overall. Now, you're probably sitting thinking, going, Mustang Rally, what? Where's the link there? Well, there is one. It's a tiny thread, but there is a link, believe it or not, because in the 1960s, Ford entered competition in America in the SCCA, the Sports Car Club of America, road rallies, and they entered it with a Mustang, and they won the championship in both 1969 and 1970. And it wasn't just any Mustang they entered it with a Mach 1. So this is the Mach E Rally. So there is a link. It's a very thin one, but there is a link. A Mustang also won its class in the 1964 Tour de France Road Rally as well. So there is another wee link there as well. But as I say, if there's any company that has the right to sort of like plunder a motorsport history, a motorsport heritage, then it's Ford, isn't it? Because let's be honest, they're littered with sort of like icons from, especially rallying. You know, you've got the RS Mexicos, the RS Cosworth, both Escort and Sierra. And of course, throughout motorsport, we've got things such as Lotus Cortinas, as I say, the Sierra RS 500, Cosworth that did touring cars, Focus RS, Focus Cosworth. All of those cars that entered into rallying. So Ford have every right to sort of like, dare I suggest, plunder this sort of like area of motorsport and give themselves sort of like a halo car, if you like, which is what this is. And there's more to it than that as well, because obviously these type of rallycross inspired sort of like sports cars have become a little bit of a thing of late. Of course, we've had things such as the Porsche 911 Dakar, the Lamborghini Huracan Sterato, and this is Ford's offering, because it's based on the Mustang Mach-E GT, which is arguably the worst of the Mustang Mach-E's in fairness. But does this rallycross inspired version of it turn what is quite a bad car into actually a very good one? And is this the car that finally means that Ford have every right to plunder that heritage and trump out marketing spiel after marketing spiel about their historic victories? Let's find out, shall we? However, before we delve deeper, let's take a look at the main points of the Mustang Mach-E Rally. So the Rally is actually an option pack that you can specify on the Mach-E GT for an additional £2,250. Which means it retains the GT's dual motor drivetrain that produces 480 horsepower. It also has the same 91 kilowatt hour battery for a WLTP range of up to 316 miles. The Rally package not only adds some styling changes to the car, but also features alterations to suspension, wheels, tyres and driving modes. And whilst it is an option pack, in the UK at least, production will be limited. So a Rallycross inspired version of the worst version of Ford's oldest electric car. Another nail in the marketing coffin at Ford Motor Company? Or is this finally the car that gains some credibility to Ford's motorsport and historic claims? Well, the only way we're going to find out is, of course, by putting it through the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. It's the AutoEV one. Now, as always, we start with how the car looks. Bonkers is my view on it. I absolutely love it. I think it looks great. Admittedly, it's not everyone's cup of tea and it's not perfect. And I do have a lot of frustrations with how this car looks, Ford, and I'm going to explain why. And trust me, I'm going to properly get my high horse about this one. But never mind, let's start with how it actually looks. It's not just a standard Mustang Mach-E GT. There's a lot of changes have gone into the car, and we'll talk a lot about them as we go around it. But we start at the front. Now, obviously, it loses the Mexican moustache, which the standard Mach-E gets, but the GT has a carbon infill here, a sort of carbon area here. The Rally just gets a black plastic one. Why? The other issue that I've got with it, when they first showed sort of like this car in sort of like, you know, concept, idea form, it had two big Rally lamps in the front there. Where have they gone, Ford? So the first thing you do if you get this, get yourself down to Demon Tweaks. If you're my age, you'll know who they are. And get yourself a couple of big hellas and stick them on this car, because that's what it needs. Where have the driving lamps gone? Anyway, that's that. The other issue that I've got is the colour. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for bright colours, I'm all for moving away from grey. But here's the colours that you can get the Rally in. You can either have this grabber yellow, which is 1150 quid, or you can have it in grabber blue, a kind of bright, sort of like almost flattish blue colour. That's another £150. Black or glacier grey. Why can't you have it in white? Your own Rally colour, Ford. You look back through history. Escort Mexicos, RS200s, RS2000s, Escort Cosworths, Sierra Cosworths, Focus RS. They all rallied in white. Yet the one Rally car that you're doing for the road, you can't have it in your own motorsport colour. You can have a standard Mustang Mach-E GT in white, but not a Rally. Why not? And if you think back to what I said at the beginning about that tangible link to the 1960s, guess what colour the Mustang Mach-1's rallied in the SCCA? White. Why can't you have it in white? Have this in white with the blue RS graphics on it. That would look amazing. And there's the other issue that I've got with the car. Why is it called Rally? Why not Rally Sport or RS? If you're going to plunder your historic heritage motorsport badges, Ford, like you have done with Capri and things like that, the one iconic badge that you have, RS, you've not used. And before you all start saying to me, well, you know, RS is only a kind of European thing, why does it have an RS driving mode in it? An absolute, am I just some marketing savant that's just realised this? And Ford's going to be sitting there going, oh yeah. Somebody gets paid an awful lot more than I do to come up with these things, and even I could say this should have been called the Mustang RS. Anyway, there we go. Standard, obviously, stuff otherwise when it comes to the way it looks, of course. I really like the Mustang Mach-E. I genuinely do. I think it's a good looking car. And I know a lot of people find that controversial, but I really like it. Of course, you get these swept back, sort of like cowled, almost like angry looking headlights that go from the front into the wings. As I say, you lose the Mexican moustache, you get the big Mustang, but there's no Ford badging on it, save for the little Ford logo at the top of the windscreen there, the standard like it is with the Mustang as well. It is branded Mustang, so you get the prancing pony on the front there. All your cooling's done at the bottom, and that's active as well, so the flaps open and close as more air is needed and stuff like that. You get this much more sort of aggressive, again, sort of like black plastic to match that, sort of like front splitter as well on the car. But as I say, as we go around it, we'll talk a bit more about the changes, because they have done an awful lot to the car to turn it from a GT into the Rally, as you're now going to find out. Now, like I said at the beginning, the Rally is an option pack that you add to a Mach-E GT. which in fairness, you do get an awful lot for your money. It's £2,250, and there's an awful lot within that £2,250. Now, the first thing that you notice is obviously it's got a raised ride height, 20mm uplift in the suspension. It also has retuned Magna Ride dampers. There's also underbody protection added to the car, so skid plates round about the motors as well, to obviously protect them for if you're obviously off-road, but you know what I'm talking about, kind of gravel roads and stuff like that. You also get these gloss white bespoke 19-inch Rally inspired wheels, as well as a set of Michelin Cross Climate tyres, which are excellent bits of rubber on the car as well. And they sort of like sit in front of the big Brembo brakes that you get standard obviously on the Mach-E GT. The rest of it looks very, very similar, but to a GT, where normally it would have the body colour wheel arch extensions and sill sections here, it doesn't. It gets the same matte black that you get round about the front. But obviously, as I say, the rest of it's sort of the same, and of course you get a contrasting roof. There's no panoramic roof on the Rally, by the way, just be aware of that as well. And then we get to this, the rear spoiler, which Ford say is inspired by the Focus RS rear spoiler. So why haven't you called it an RS? If it's inspired by an RS model, why is it not called an RS? Oh, I give up with you, Ford. And then we get around the back, and well, as I say, you can really see that big rear wing, you know, as I say, and of course the sort of like the arms that come from the roof to hold it, as I say, that properly is exactly like a Focus RS, isn't it? You know, properly big, in-your-face rear wing on the car. And of course you still get the standard Mach-E rear wing as well. Rear wiper, which I think is excellent. The fact that most of these fastback style SUVs don't have that, but you do get a rear wiper on the car. You get your standard sort of like three sort of like vertical tail lights as well, like the Mustang Mach-E gets, and the Mustang obviously. And of course you get your prancing pony there. Reversing camera really neatly integrated actually into this top lip there, and then of course it's got a relatively low set hatch with the release just underneath that, and again that sort of like matte finish sort of like plastic rear bumper with a slightly different sort of like rear diffuser at the back. So what do we think? Well, look, this isn't a car for people that like to hide their light under a bushel. This is a very in-your-face style of car. But are you with me? Are you sort of like, do you get where I'm coming from with this? Am I just being a bit silly with this? Because I genuinely do think there's a proper missed opportunity here. The first Mustang to wear an RS badge. You know, you talk about sort of like, you know, your rally heritage and all. This is the type of thing that, you know, this is why manufacturers trump out these sort of special edition type of cars. You know, the 911 Dakar, you know, to celebrate Porsche's sort of like, you know, competition in the Dakar Rally. So why hasn't Ford made more of this? Why have they not really pushed the boat out more with this and made an RS model? It's an iconic badge, RS, Rally Sport. And as I say, I appreciate it's something that we in Britain and maybe across Europe really get excited about, maybe not the rest of the world, but they've got an RS driving mode in it. So why is it not an RS? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you have a Mustang Mach-E? Would this tempt you to trade up on looks alone? Do you have a GT but really think it's a little bit too subtle for you? Would you rather have something like this? As always, just let me know your thoughts down below. Obviously it's as practical as a Mach-E Mustang. 402 litres of boot space. Not the biggest in the class, in fairness, but if you do fold down the 60-40 split standard rear seat, it takes total capacity up to 1,420. It's a relatively high car to lift things up into, but it is a nice flat entry into the boot of the car. And in fairness, if you're just a little bit clever with how you position them, we can actually get the four AutoEV suitcases in here. So you get your big one at the back there, you get your medium one here, and you can get the two carry-ons down the side in a slightly convoluted way, but they do fit in. And of course you've got your flexible load cover as well, so you can remove that and fold it and put it underneath the boot floor. There's a cable bag underneath the boot floor, but it's not an additional storage, and there's no actual sort of like variable height boot floor. But the one thing with the Mustang Mach-E is you do get a reasonable amount of storage up at the front, as I shall now ably demonstrate. Because up at the front, you get an additional 81 litres of storage, don't you know? Which is excellent because it's all plastic lined, which is brilliant in terms of practicality. Because if you've been out, you know, on the trails off-roading or whatever you're going to do, your Mustang Mach-E Rally, and you've got some muddy boots on or whatever, you've been out walking the dog or whatever, and you've got some wellies you want to chuck in, you can chuck them in there because it's all plastic lined, so it's dead easy to sort of like wipe clean. But it will ably take a decent sort of like additional carry-on with ease. Right, rear seat space. Well, again, that's going to be like a standard Mustang Mach-E, which is to say, it's all right back here actually, in fairness. I've got plenty of legroom. That's my driving position. I'm 5'8". If you're just new to AutoEV, welcome. I'm 5'8", as everyone knows. And I've got plenty of legroom, and I've got decent enough room to put my feet underneath the seat. And I quite like the seat. I like the seat quite low down as well, so that is good. Headroom's okay actually, in fairness, because the car doesn't have the panoramic sunroof. It is sort of like scooped out a little bit at the back here, so I've got sort of like headroom above me, and it's weird, isn't it? Because when you look at the styling in the Mustang, this was one of the first cars that sort of you really noticed it on. The styling looks, because of where the body colour is, it looks like it's one of those sort of coupe fastbacks, but actually it's the black area of the roof that's the actual roof area. So it's quite high at the back, you know, higher than you think it is on visuals. So it's quite a neat trick the designers have done. But I'd say if you're closer to the 6 foot mark, you just might find it starting to sort of like encroach into your, you know, your headroom, in fairness. Or if you've got particularly tall teenagers, you know, things like that. But in fairness, I think this is absolutely fine. Right, flat floor across, bespoke platform. I really like the fact they've got proper big rubber mats in here as well, and they're, you know, they line the carpets really well. So as I say, if you are using the car down sort of like forest trails up in Wales or something like that, or the Scottish Highlands or stuff, you know, you're not going to get your carpets all dirty. Anyway, there we go. There's 2 USB-C ports in the back there. We've got door bins, but they're quite shallow in fairness, you know, but you know, they'll take something. But you've also got the fold down armrest with 2 cup holders in there as well. So for water bottles for the kids and stuff, that's fine. Isofix points are relatively easy to get to as well. They're just sort of like slight sort of like openings on the backs of the, between the squab and the actual backrest of the seat, so they're easy to get to. And the seat itself is okay. You get it looks quite flat, but in fairness, when you sat in it, there's a good amount of support on your back here and across the rear bench as well. It's quite lengthy, so you've got a you know, you don't feel your feet are being pushed up. You've got a reasonable amount of support there. It will feel a little bit claustrophobic because it is a dark interior, and because you don't get the panoramic roof, there is a feeling of claustrophobia. However, as you can probably see, what also you get on the Rallys, these gloss white backs to the front seats. White? Why can't you get it on the outside? Anyway, you know, you get the gloss black elements to the interior of the car, and they're on the backs of these front seats, which are really good, and I'll talk about them when we jump in the front. So yeah, in fairness, as a family car, it works exactly like the Mustang Mach-E has always worked. And actually, I think this is a decent car, especially, as I say, for rear accommodation. Now, it's been a while since we reviewed a Mustang Mach-E on the channel, so it's probably not a bad idea just to go around the interior again. There are some changes up here. As I say, you get the gloss black inserts on the backs of the seats, and you get this gloss white, sorry, did I say gloss black? Apologies, gloss white inserts on the back of the seats, and you get the gloss white insert on the steering wheel as well. And then there's a little bit of white, sort of, you know, almost sort of piping, if you like, just around the door panels as well and across the dash. So I quite like that. There's a little bit of a lift in here. But as I say, it's probably worthwhile just going through the interior as well. Now, I was really critical of the interior of the Explorer and the Capri in some respects because it didn't use Ford switchgear. It used Volkswagen switchgear. And this is the thing that bewildered me. It's like, you've got good switchgear, Ford. Why haven't you used it in those other products? Because in the Mustang Mach-E, the switchgear works really, really well. I really like it, you know. You've got proper column stocks over here, you know, for your, bandy wheel, for your wipers on the right, your indicators and lights on the left, and physical buttons on the steering wheel, you know, which work really well. They're just nice, and they're easy to, you know, click, and, you know, for volume and track search and stuff, and your cruise control over here. The car also gets Ford's Blue Cruise, by the way, you know, that sort of hands-off sort of cruise control stuff, which I must admit I've used a couple of times, and it's quite weird. I don't know if I like it or not, but it does work, you know, in fairness to Ford. I think it's one of the only ones you can actually use, you know, hands-free in some respects. I wouldn't read a book with it. Anyway, there you go. But it's got that as well. And in fairness, as I say, the interior, I think I've always had a little bit of a love-hate relationship with the interior of the Mustang Mach-E. But, you know, having spent actually a lot of time with this car, you know, and doing some reasonable journeys in it, I'm starting to, you know, I start to get used to it. The main focus is obviously this, which is the 15-inch Portrait Sync 4 infotainment screen. And whilst there are physical buttons, pretty much everything else is controlled through here. If you've got a Mustang Mach-E, you'll know this, and you'll probably get on okay with it. And I have to say, Ford's ones, I think's okay. So at the bottom here, you've got permanent climate control. That stays on all the time. You get this embedded bezel, if you like, which is your volume control as well. But also, if you go into fan speed, where is it? Fan there. It then moves to be your fan control. I really like that. And then you touch the temperature, and it then all of a sudden becomes your temperature control. So, you know, so good. I like that. Versatility, Ford, you know, so like it doubles it. Sorry, you know, it has multiple uses, this bezel, which I really like. And I don't remember that being there at the start in terms of having all, I thought it was just a volume control right at the start. I might be wrong. But anyway, I like that. That's good. And as I say, the climate control itself is permanently on. So you soon get used to where everything is. So, you know, your heated seats, heated steering wheel, which are obviously are on this car, the temperature set there, auto climate and stuff like that, that's there. Then you get sort of like little shortcut widgets, if you like, you know, for things like your charging, audio, what's that, tire pressure, audio off, and then your phone system, which obviously my phone's programmed in. Then you get your navigation at the top as well. Now this screen doesn't move like it does in the Explorer Capri. You can't alter its angle, if you like, so it is that way and that's it. It doesn't rotate like a BYD. That is it. But it's nice, big and clear. Okay, now don't get me wrong, there are bits of it that are a little bit what was I doing the other day and I found it. Do you see what I mean? It's a bit laggy, isn't it? You know, when it comes up, it is a little bit laggy. You know, that comes up quite quickly, but then you ask it to do something, to go on to something else. There's charging. There it is. Do you see what I mean? That needs to be quicker, I think. There's just too much lag there. Right, then I pressed the button up there with the car symbol on it. There is all your settings in here. So you go into here for your things like your sound, adding phones, driver assistance systems. Now, you can go, see what I mean? Look, it's taken ages to bring that list up. To go into things like your speed limit assist, your lane keeping system as well. There is a shortcut to those as well. But again, it just takes a little bit of time. Don't understand, I don't remember it being that laggy. Anyway, there we go. And I've driven two of these and they're exactly the same. It's not just this car. I've driven two of them the same. And then there's things like your vehicle, going in there to things such as your, you know what it's all about. You know, program things like your lock so that when you unlock it, it unlocks the driver's door. Then a second lock to unlock all the other doors. Power fold your mirrors in, remote startup, that type of thing. And all your things are down the side there. Now you also get Amazon Alexa. I'd like to just whisper that. Amazon Alexa, because you get that integrated into it now as well, which wasn't also there on the very first ones as well, and then a valet mode. Okay, I don't need to go into all that because we have done a big thing on it. So it's good in a lot of ways, in the sense that I think it is, I like how big it is, I like how, dare I suggest, simple it is. Obviously you get things such as Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and it's wireless, certainly on the Apple CarPlay, it's wireless. And obviously because it's in the portrait mode, that makes CarPlay really, really easy to use, because obviously, you know, when you're normally using your iPhone, it's in a, you know, or any smartphone, it's in a portrait mode. So it just replicates that, and I think that's the easiest one. And I quite like the fact that the map is a portrait map rather than a landscape map. So I do like it, but as I say, it's quite laggy. Okay, so that's that. I'm not going to go on too much about that, but that's all in there. But the other thing as well is you've then got this, see, this is my problem with the Explorer and the Capri. They used the Volkswagen display. Why did they not use this nice little neat display you get in the Mustang Mach-E? This is a really nice little display. I really like this little sort of almost letterbox style display you get here, directly in front of you. Wheel doesn't cut it off or anything, it's just really nice. And the sort of like, you know, the font they use is Ford. So it's all Ford, it's consistent. That's what I like about it. And it's dead easy to read, you know, so you've got your speed over here, your gear indication there, your range to go there, and then all your little bits of information such as outside temperature, your total, you know, your total mileage, your odometer there, and then your lane keep assist. And again, if you're using the blue cruise, it comes up in the centre there. And it's really neat and it's really well laid out and it's nice and easy. Why have they not used that on the other cars? That's what I find really odd. Then there's the dashboard design itself, and it's this sort of, if you were to take that off, it's almost like the double cowled style of a Mustang. That's what they tried to do. But obviously then when you plop that in the middle, you can't really see it till you're on this side of the seat. You can see how it's this double cowl thing. You get your B&O soundbar across top, which I really like. Good audio system in the car, Bang & Olufsen audio system. It works really well. It's got a nice, nice sound to it. The dash itself, okay, so you've got this sort of like design here on this centre plastic section, which is, it's all right, you know, I don't mind it. But then you've got the Alcantara. So then it makes it feel like a little bit more premium with this little bit of Alcantara here, which then is in the centre of the seat as well, because you get this leather Alcantara style seat. And they're perforated on the seats, and it's got, again, it's got this sort of like, almost like a white background that seems to come through the perforations. And just your eye catches it, and it looks really good. I like that. And that's what I'm saying, I really quite like the interior now. I'm starting to get used to it. The wheel I really do like. It's one of the nicest wheels. It's really odd. I know it sounds daft, but it's just the right thickness. But the shape of it, it's got slightly more rounded sort of like rim to it, and your fingers hold it really well. I do like it. You know, the 3-spoke design. Again, that feels like a really nice steering wheel to hold. Down here, you've got it looks like you've got 2 wireless chargers. You don't, it's just the one, and then that's a storage bit. And then you've got a separate storage tray underneath. So there's loads of storage. And then you've got this lift-up armrest with a slidey cover on it, where you've got more storage in there that's carpeted in the bottom, a 12-volt socket. You've got 2 USB sockets there, one of which is a USB-A, there's a USB-C. So there's good connectivity. And then on the door panel, you've got your, you know, your nice switches, as I say here. So there's 4 electric window switches, imagine that. How well that works. And your mirror controls up there. It all works really, really well. And that's what I'm saying. They already had a really good interior in the Mustang. So why have they gone down the route of using Volkswagen stuff, which nobody likes, in the Explorer and Capri? Bewildering. The seats, I've got to give mention to these seats, because actually I really do like them. Now, I've done some reasonable mileage in Mustang Mach-E's. When we first reviewed the car, we had it against the Audi Q4 e-tron, I remember it. And just before the Audi arrived, my family and I went to Scotland in a Mustang Mach-E and really, really liked it. Really liked the comfort. These are the seats from the GT, so you get these wraparound shoulder supports, and they are really good. They're a really good shoulder support. You know, the seats themselves, they hold you really nicely. I've done quite a distance in sort of like, you know, 2 of these, this car and another rally as well. And actually, yeah, they do hold you really well. There's just enough length in the squab as well. You've got tilt adjustment. You've also got height adjustment, obviously lumbar support and stuff, and there's just the right amount of lateral support and just enough support down the sides of your thighs as well, so that's good too. We're going to discuss price of the car in the pricing section. However, that's maybe the only thing I would say in terms of the price of this car. Is it the interior that's worthy of a car at that price? I'm going to leave that for you guys to decide. I'm not going to get involved in that. I have my thoughts on it, which I will give you in the pricing section. But that's one thing that you would have to decide yourself. But as I say, if you've had a Mustang Mach-E, this is also very familiar to you. You get the GT seats, which are lovely. Oh, and they've also got the this is the thing I keep saying. You know, they've got the Rally logo embossed in them. But remember what I was saying out. So I mean, again, you get a lot for your money. But remember what I was saying earlier. Where is it? Let me just show you here. Where's the driving modes? God, I can't remember where the bloody driving modes are now. It was in here. It's not driving assistant, general. Hang on. Let me go away from that. God, this is embarrassing, isn't it? Where is it? It's in here somewhere. Oh, there it is. What am I doing? See, here's your driving modes. I was looking at it. Couldn't see the wood for the trees. Whisper, active and untame. Okay, so that's the same as the GT. See, look there, even the picture of the Rally at the top has driving lamps in it. Why have they not fitted them? Anyway, you can go in there to adjust your one pedal drive if you want one pedal driving. But Whisper, seamless drive, calm and quiet, smoother acceleration and steering, the best mode for slippery conditions. In other words, it allows you a bit more throttle response as well. You know, sorry, throttle play as well. So then you go to your active mode, which it says is balanced drive, everyday fun. That's like normal mode. Then you go to the Mustang's untamed mode, okay? But when you press that, you now get a further mode, which is Rally Sport. It says it there, Rally Sport, RS. Why is this not being called? And I can't go into this argument again. But if you press this, I don't know if you can hear that. It doesn't move with the accelerator. That gives you your propulsion sound as well. It's almost like a low bassy rumble, almost like a Mustang V8, almost. But what it also will do is it will alter the slip of the car. It will alter the DSC system as well, again, if you're off-road. So you can properly kick the tail of the car out on loose surfaces. So you've got a Rally Sport mode, but you haven't called it the Rally Sport. I just don't understand that. Anyway, there you go. That's your driving modes. I'm sorry it took me so long to find that. I can't understand. It's been a long day. So that's where that is. You can go in there and change, obviously, your driving modes. I should have also mentioned just this area here, by the way. So you've got your a bit like this sort of like knurled bezel for your gear selection here, transmission selection. Electric park brake, and your parking hazards there. There's a tiny little bit of gloss black, piano gloss black around the charging. I'll forgive it for that because the rest of it's okay. Right, I'm not going to go on any more about it. You know what it is, you know what it's like. That I find just bizarre. But as I say, the screen itself, it just needs to be quicker now. They need to put a quicker processor in that because it's just getting really laggy when you think how quick some of the screens are. That just takes, and it is an annoying thing when you're driving as well. It takes a little while for things to come up. Other than that, the interior does actually work quite well, and actually I quite like it. It's better, I think, than dare I suggest the interior on the Capri and the Explorer in some respects, because it uses Ford switchgear. However, is it worthy of the price? Well, as I say, I'll leave that for you guys to decide later. Now obviously it's based on the Mustang Mach-E GT, so it gets the GT's battery, 91 kilowatt hour battery, which according to WLTP figures should give a range of up to 315 miles, which doesn't seem that much for a big battery like that, but there you go. Reality, I would suggest I've been getting somewhere between 260 to 270 miles out of the car from a full charge, and sort of like, warmish spring weather, so maybe closer to 300 in the absolute peak of summer, but it's more likely sort of like high 200s you're looking at from the car. Would have expected a little bit more. Anyway, there we go. The other disappointing thing is charging speeds. Now in some respects 150 kilowatts didn't seem all that poor when the car first came out. Nowadays it does a little bit, and the quoted time from the 10 to 80% is 36 minutes from the car, so its peak rate of charge obviously only holds it very shortly before it then starts to tail off, which is a bit disappointing. I think everything should be under 30 minutes personally, but there you go. And if you're charging up from your home wall box, then you're looking at 14.5 hours to go from flat to absolute full. And of course the other downside with this platform is it is showing its age a little bit now in the electric car world. There's no such thing such as vehicle to load or bi-directional charging either, but you do get a heat pump as standard. Now as I say, the Rally is based on the GT, which means it has the dual motor setup from the GT, which is 487 PS, 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. So not exactly a slouch. But the problem with the GT, I always felt, wasn't so much the power, it was the control that it had. The suspension was just too harsh, it was too misjudged for UK roads. They just firmed everything up, and it just wasn't very compliant, and it didn't absorb things, it didn't make it better, it just made it faster. And in some respects it was actually the worst car of the Mach-E range. Perversely, by making the Rally better off-road, they've made it better on-road, because obviously you've got retuned suspension, so you've got that 20mm uplift in suspension, plus they've retuned the Magna Ride dampers, and of course you've now got these much bigger sidewalled Michelin Cross Climate tyres on it. So the upshot is the ride quality is now actually quite good. It's absolutely fine. There's an element of bounce in it. You can feel sort of like, there is an element of travel. So as you go over ridges, it doesn't feel quite as controlled. The body control isn't quite there. So again, maybe they just need to the damping maybe needs a little bit of tweaking. But on the whole, it's way better than you get out of the standard GT. So, what else is it like? Well, unfortunately they haven't done anything with the steering, and of course by changing the tyres as well, it adds a little bit to the vagueness of the steering. The steering's never been that sharp in the sense of, you never really quite were sure where things were. There was a vagueness to it, and as I say, because of that bigger contact patch with the road and the less feel because of the bigger tyres, there's even less feel in the Rally than there is in the GT. But in fairness, I'd say it's worth it to get the better ride quality. That's what I would say. So it's fine as far as the performance is concerned, as far as 0 to 60 and the actual sort of like speed of the car is concerned. More about how it actually drives and behaves on the road. And I have to say, it is a big improvement. There is a big improvement here. There's an element of rear bias in it, some respects. When you sort of like you come out of a bend and you sort of like you put your foot down, you can almost feel that there is a little bit power shifting towards the back. And I would think on a loose surface, if you had it on a sort of like a gravel road or anything, not that I'm suggesting you should drive like this, folks, but I'm just saying it wouldn't sort of like be out of the question maybe to feel a little bit of playfulness from the back end of the car, just a little bit of slip at the back. Now, as I said to you earlier, with those driving modes, when I eventually found them when they're staying right in front of me, if I go into them, he says, now I can't find them again. If I go into them, here we go here, and I go into the untamed mode, and I press the Rally Sport one, that will actually now give me that little bit more slip from the DSC system. So it allows just a little bit more power just to kick the back end out before it just reins you back in a little bit. But the other thing as well, of course, is because you've got the motor at the front of the car as well, that helps as well with the grip. So you do get that little bit of slip at the back, and then the front end bites as well, just to sort of like, and the whole thing pulls you around the corner. It is good, and as I say, oddly, it's a better car on road than the GT in which it's based. But it's not flawless. It's not as communicative as, say, something like the Hyundai Ioniq 5N or a Kia EV6 GT, which is a slightly better grand touring car, But in terms of these performance crossovers, it sits somewhere between. It sits somewhere in the sense that there is a better car here than the as I say, the GT, but it's not quite as pin sharp as something like the very, very best of them. It's somewhere in the middle of it all, and it's more comfortable. But what I would say is, if you do tend to get the speed up on the car on the road, and you do hit, bits in the road that aren't quite as flat as it would be, you do tend to get that little bit of body bounce. So the control isn't quite perfect. Does that make sense? The other thing about the car as well is the brakes. Now, they're good brakes, don't get me wrong, they really haul the car up. There's nothing behind me. If I just, they are powerful brakes. They can feel a little bit grabby though. That is the only downside with them. There's just elements of them, they do feel a little bit grabby. Sorry, that's just one of my cameras just deciding it's had enough. They do feel a little bit grabby, and they can actually just they're difficult to modulate easily. There is there's a one pedal drive mode in here. So if I switch that on, one pedal drive point. See, so it does pull the car up, which is quite nice. So you do get that, which is all right. But I must admit, I do prefer use the brakes myself normally. Right, so there we go. Now I'm coming up to my normal sort of like little twisty bit and roundabout. You see what I mean? It just there, you can just feel the bounce, and it just feels that ever so slightly you're slightly out of control. Now on a loose surface that might be quite fun, but on a smooth piece of tarmac, I'd just like a little bit more control on the car, a little bit more body control. Might be quite nice if there was an element of air suspension where you could almost maybe lower it and just bring the body control under a better control, for want of a better word. But I do not want to be too down on this car at all, because actually, as I say, you've got a better car than the GT in which it's based. There's no doubt about that. All the bits about the GT, the performance, the acceleration, all of that, and in some respects even just being the Mustang Mach-E, I think it's a good car. All of that is still there. They've made it more comfortable, without doubt, more usable. But there is a trade-off as well. Now, as I say, it's a shame I don't really have anywhere locally to me where I could take it out, with a little bit of loose surface and just see what it's like in the environment, dare I suggest, that maybe Ford had thought about when they developed the car. But them's the brakes, folks. I don't. So that's it. Welcome to leafy Surrey. But there's an element of me that thinks that this would actually be very good. And I tell you where I think it really would be good. In colder climes. So, you know, with a layer of snow on the ground. You know, when you've got that kind of slushy snow, because these Michelin cross climate tyres are really good. I've got them on my Jeep Grand Cherokee and they are an excellent bit of rubber. So I would think that added to all the other bits that are on this, you know, would make this actually a really decent car on, you know, on a snow covered road. I think this could be a real sort of like almost pleasures drive, and dare I suggest be a little bit of fun. But out on the road, as I say, it's a better car than the GT, but there are still elements of it that aren't quite as pin sharp as the competition. Competition, which dare I remind you, are cheaper, because we're going to start talking about price in a minute. Yeah, I hope you're sitting down. Right, price. Right, now, a couple of little things. First of all, an apology, because right at the start I said this metallic grabber yellow was £1,150 option. It's not actually, this is standard colour with the Rally, so apologies on that. So I've saved you some money there. And in some respects, the Rally package is £2,250, and I think that's really good value for money, considering what you get. Because you get the retuned Magna-Ride dampers, you obviously get the different suspension on the car, you obviously get the styling changes, you get the 19-inch gloss white alloy wheels, you get a set of Michelin cross-climate tyres, there's the underbody protection on the car, and as I say, all the various different bits and pieces in the interior that the Rally package brings. So for £2,250, I do think you get an awful lot for that money. However, that is an option pack on a standard Mustang Mach-E GT, and you can only add it to the GT, which means that you have a starting price before the option of £75,000, which puts this car here as it sits just a tickle under £78,000 as it sits, or in other words, £13,000 more than a Hyundai Ioniq 5N. I'm just going to leave that there. Let's move on. Now this is quite a difficult one, I think, when you think of competition. If we were stood here next to a standard Mustang Mach-E GT, we can fairly easily find some rivals for the car, but because the Rally just takes it and changes it ever so slightly into a relatively unique proposition, it's harder to find the competition for this particular car. But in some respects, despite it being the Rally, let's be honest, very few people are going to use it anywhere other than on road. So maybe we do have to look at the standard competition for the GT to look at competition for the Rally. In which case, for me, it's the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. Now, of course, Hyundai, like Ford, have a rallying history. They have a good success in the Rally stages, and the N division has that sort of tie-in with it. So, yeah, I think the Ioniq 5N is a natural thing to compare it to. Obviously, in terms of taking on loose surfaces and slightly off the beaten track, you're not going to do that with a Hyundai Ioniq 5N, but as I say, majority of people are going to stick to tarmac. So definitely that's a competitor for it. There's also another competitor for the car, but I can't tell you about it at the moment because I have driven it and it's under embargo. I can't even mention it at the moment, but there is another car that's going to be on the AutoEV channel in June, which is going to be a rival for this car. And in many, many ways, in terms of its price, boy, does it offer value when you compare it with this car as well. But I'm just going to leave that there. We can't talk about it just yet, okay? But again, just finding other things, it's quite tricky, isn't it? You know, in some respects. Do you compare it to some things such as the Volkswagen ID4, ID5 GTX, for instance? Not sure you do. I don't think the customer that's going to buy one of those cars would really consider a Mach-E GT Rally, in fairness, or maybe even a standard GT, I'm not sure. There's also the Nissan Ariya Nismo as well, which is a performance variant of this medium-sized sort of like, you know, crossover SUV style electric car. Now, I've driven the Nismo very briefly, not enough to form an opinion of it, but I do hope to have it on the channel very, very soon as well, because I like the standard Ariya, so I'm really keen to see what the Nismo brings to the sort of like the party and whether that changes things as well. But I think you might look slight left field alternatives to this car. Now, given the price of it, you know, which as we've said is not a cheap car, would you consider maybe a slightly previously enjoyed Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo? I don't know. maybe that's a car that you might consider to be a rival, a used Porsche Taycan Cross Turismo. Or even just a standard Taycan, because let's be fair, they're not slow. An Audi with the e-tron GT, they've just bought a revised version of that, a lower spec version of that out, for not dissimilar money to this. It's a hard car to pigeonhole, and it's hard to come up with competition for it in some respects. I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing though. See, here's what we like, and also what we don't like, about the new Mustang Mach-E Rally. Well, we like its styling. It has good performance. There's no doubt the improvements over the standard GT that the Rally package brings are very welcome. There's a relative value for money of that Rally pack option, and the car shows that Ford still knows how to have fun. However, we don't like, well, as much as we like it, we also know that the styling won't be to everyone's taste. And again, whilst better than the GT, the dynamics still aren't good enough for a performance EV in some ways. Its electrical architecture now feels like it's getting left behind. We feel that Ford should have leaned more heavily on its motorsport heritage and certainly have used the RS badge. And in fairness, as good as it can be, it's just too expensive overall. Now, I like this car. I really do. I want to make that very, very clear right from the start. I've enjoyed my time with the Mustang Mach-E Rally. And until I properly drive, I have briefly driven it, but until I properly drive the new Puma Gen E, it is my favourite electric Ford. I think the Mustang Mach-E has always been a good car. However, here's the thing about it. My favourite Mustang Mach-E isn't the GT, it's the mid-ranking extended range all-wheel drive car. The GT I just felt was just a step too far. Now the Rally does address a lot of the problems I have with the GT, namely, first of all, its atrocious ride quality. But it does make it a very niche product at this price point. Let's bear in mind, this is a near £80,000 car. I mean, there are niche products and there is the Mustang Mach-E Rally. And it's £78,000 for this one. A £13,000 premium over what I think is already probably the best electric car you can buy, the Hyundai Ioniq 5N. And remember, £13,000 is almost the price of a new Dacia Spring, remember? That's what it's going to take you to get into it. So in some respects, you have to be a proper die-hard Ford enthusiast to really see the point of this car. And there's my biggest problem with it in some respects. And again, it comes down to not just the product, but it's how Ford are marketing the product as well. Why haven't they made more of this? You've got such an illustrious history with the badge RS, with the Rally Sport badge Ford. Why have you not made more of it with this car? The one chance you had to really turn things round for yourself with this, and you just seem, especially when you've gone to all that effort to sort of like plunder your heritage with the Capri, saying that it's an SUV that's sold as a sports car, the car you always promise yourself, blah, 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 all of that kind of rubbish. But you're leaving the Mustang out of it. The Mustang badge is one of your most iconic, and the RS badge is probably your most iconic, probably the one that you should have really stood up and shouted from the rooftops, especially when you think of the price of some of those classic RSs, the way they're getting now. Because in some respects, in your enthusiast's mind, they might have been able to correlate the two. That is the value of RS product now. And the way you've done it, you just haven't made enough of it. And I think that's a real missed opportunity. However, let me just say this here and now, okay? I do like the car. There's a lot of fun to be had with this car. And the way that it drives and the way that, dare I suggest, it even just makes you feel looking at it, it gives me hope that there is a car in Ford's future for us enthusiasts with sort of like electric drivetrain. This car still shows that someone at Ford still knows how to have fun. Thank you for watching another road test review on AutoEV. Please make sure you are subscribed to the AutoEV channel. Then when you've done that, make sure you've pressed the little bell button that's down below, because that's the way you get notified when our next video is uploaded and it's gone live. If you have enjoyed this week's review, please make sure you give it a little thumbs up. And of course, as always, and I'm sure you won't forget, because a lot of you do, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. What do you think of the Ford Mustang Mach-E Rally? Is it 80 grand of your money? let me know down below. Now remember, we're across on all social media platforms as well, so if you're into your Facebook, your Instagram, your TikTok, your X, your LinkedIn, whatever else there is, we're probably on it as well. So give us a follow there as well, because every little bit does help. And maybe you're thinking of an electric car, but you maybe don't have the appetite for a new Mustang Mach-E Rally. Maybe you think to yourself, actually I quite fancy a second-hand Mustang Mach-E, an extended range all-wheel drive car. But I need to know more about it. How do I find out? Well, here's how. Stay in the AutoEV homepage on the YouTube channel. Just at the top there is a magnifying glass. Type the name of the car that you're thinking of buying in there, and if it's been a new electric car in the UK in the last 6 years, then of course we've subjected it to the road test that actual car buyers trust when it comes to choosing their next electric vehicle. And that, folks, is the AutoEV one. All it remains for me to say is thank you once again for watching. Thank you for your continued support. I'll see you again soon.